All right, good morning, everybody. Still recovering from the COVID. Took the day off yesterday, more or less. Didn't even go to the mikveh, didn't go to shul. I planned to go to the mikveh because I left my towel there Friday, but didn't leave the house all day. Davened pretty late, but ate the sudas and davened and everything. Davened mincha early, but here I am. I don't have symptoms anymore. I'm just weak. So I'm going to work this one, my Sunday job. I don't get paid if I don't go to work. I don't have sick days as opposed to my regular job. So here I am heading to work and then also performing a wedding down on Long Island today. So it's a little bit odd. Unfortunately, last night we had another bad news. We've lost so many tzaddikim recently. I didn't have any shaykhs with the Hasidic Rabbi from Lugano, but everyone agreed he was a big Talmid Chacham. And then Moshe Wolfson, who I used to visit. So we need, people to be advocates for us, and it's very, very difficult. I know the story goes that when the Verdaner Rebbe was nifter a few years ago during COVID, I guess two years ago, he was a big tzaddik. I remember seeing him once. I davened with him one time. A big tzaddik in Flatbush from the Nutverna Rebbe's. Verdun, I had ancestors who were Rabbanim in Verdun also. So the shaykhs to the city in Verdun, Gross Verdun, or Adea. And they say that the Koblentzer Rebbe, among other tzaddikim, wrote letters to put into the Aron with the Verdaner Rebbe that he should take with him to heaven during the COVID. And I think what we're experiencing now in the world is in many ways worse than what was going on during the heights of the COVID pandemic, whatever that was. So it's really, really, but we don't feel it. We don't recognize it. So we need to, and we need God to wake us up in a gentle way. But certainly losing such big tzaddikim, like I said now, Shmaya Greenbaum, is so much for limited Torah. The way that he wrote his Siyata D'Shmaya, I remember people discussing the milas of his sefer, and they were saying that it was better than Kahati's Parashah Mishpanayas. And so we hope, the tzaddikim don't lose the memory of us here when they go, and they could be Melitza Yosher for us in the Olam Emes. On a different note, there's just something else on my mind. Just talking, trying to accomplish something here with, I should really be learning, but kind of, this is better for me when I'm driving, is that, I hope everyone can hear me, by the way. Driving my mom's car, my car's in the shop getting brakes done. I hope it's not too expensive. But with all this being said, and we're so thankful to Kodesh Baruch Hu for all the good things in our lives, and we should focus on the good in our lives. And I saw today Rabbi Victor Miller, Zchus Yivin Baruch Hashem, I had a zchus of meeting on a few occasions, talking about, and this is what he told me, it's on the tape. I mean, it was a public when I asked the question, but I was talking about this in the prison on Thursday. I wasn't there Friday. Thursday, I was talking to one of the guys who was in the mental health unit, and he brought from the Chavis Levavos. The Chavis Levavos said that there was a story of two Hasidim were walking along. Incidentally, Rav Miller didn't say this, but it seems historically that the Koblentzer Rebbe, like Rabbi Avram and Rambam, had a symbiotic fellowship with the Sufi Muslims. And a lot of times when he would use the word Hasidim in the Koblentzer Rebbe, at least in the translation that we have, because of course the Koblentzer Rebbe was written in Arabic, but the Koblentzer Rebbe that we have translated by Ibn Tibbon says the word Hasidim, and it means Hasidim Olam Mistama, and the Hasidim Olam, that meaning the righteous Gentiles, and the Hasidim Olam that the Koblentzer Rebbe was working with and fellowshipping with were mostly Sufi Muslims. So I was saying this over to a person who identifies as Jewish. He was in the mental health unit, but other guys could hear me, and then I guess one Muslim guy's like, "You don't know what you're talking about." But that's the history, was that at that time in history, Jews and Sufi Muslims particularly had a tremendous amount of fellowship together, to the point where there were those who said that Rabbi Avram ben Rambam and the Koblentzer Rebbe and their Talmidim and their Chevraya there could be identified as Sufi Jews in a way. But they shared a lot of, especially Musar and meditation techniques and other things. I don't know why I went from like 17 viewers down to 1. That's interesting. Maybe because I'm talking about Sufi Muslims. I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know if the reception isn't good or whatever. So, but to talk to 1 is also good. I appreciate the 1. Maybe there are more now or up to 11. I don't know how it works. But thank you for watching. So anyway, the Koblentzer Rebbe, he tells the story that these two men walking along, pious men, and they saw a carcass of a donkey. And the one said, "Look how disgusting this carcass is." And the other one said, "But look at how clean his teeth are. White and clean and beautiful the teeth are." And Rabbi Victor Miller, he said, "We live in a beautiful world. So on one hand, we should think of those who are less fortunate than us and be thankful for all of the fortune and all the blessings that God has bestowed upon us, and focus on the good things in the world. And it's very important to be thankful, to be cognizant, to be happy, to have simcha, to have joy. They say even when we're mourning for the Beis Hamikdash, and today's Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, so 17 days from now we'll start the 3 weeks. And when we're engaged in any type of activities that are related to mourning, one thing that I strongly recommend is during the day, during the 3 weeks, to say the Tikkun Chatzos, or at least part of it. At least if you say Psalm 137, something to connect to the mourning of the 3 weeks. And when and certainly in Tisha B'Av, we're sitting on the floor and we're saying Kiddush and everything. When we do that, there should be a certain amount of simcha. I think Rav Nachman Breslover says this, other tzaddikim, they say this, that you can have simcha of knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And one of the big problems we have in the world, particularly people who are not connected to any type of religious spirituality that brings them guidance and ways of living their life, and Musar and things, is that there's tremendous melancholy in the world, and I experience it. I struggle with depression and anxiety and sadness And it is a struggle, but we're supposed to be struggling. We're supposed to work to try to bring simcha into our lives, to bring joy into our lives when we don't feel it. I remember when my Zayda was nifter, it was Erev Sukkos. And so about a week later, it was Simchas Torah, and the Rav in the shul said, it's Simchas Torah, you can't be sad. It's Yantiv, Samachta b'chagecha, v'yisach sameach. So, and B'chlal, we have to imbue our lives with simcha, with joy, even when we don't feel it. Dennis Prager says very wisely, and I don't agree with everything he says politically and theologically, but his Musar is a good Bal Musar. And one of his different Musar that he always says is, you take a shower every day, and you put on deodorant, and you brush your teeth, and you use mouthwash, because your body naturally has bad smell, and you want to remove that bad smell so when you're in public around other people, they don't have to suffer from that smell of your body or your breath or whatever else. So just the same, you might naturally be feeling sad, but you wash that away and try to feel joy, try to feel happiness, and focus on that happiness. We're coming to Parshas Chukas. That's what this week's Parsha coming up, and that's a big inyan of Parshas Chukas, of the effort of the Paraduma, is to wipe away the tumah, the impurity of death, and that there is a tumah that comes with contact with the dead, because we're naturally sad, or we're naturally depressed, and we have to go through a process to remove that sadness and that tumah, and that impurity, the spiritual impurity. Oh my goodness, I forgot to bring pages also. All right. So, the next thing we wanted to discuss along these lines. Today was a very different, weird type of a day. And, I remember Rabbi Dr. Abraham J. Tversky, he said of a husband and wife, right? In America, and more so in Europe, in the secular world, right? People will cohabitate for years before they get married, right? And the religious communities, whether Jewish or Christian or Muslim, we don't do those things, right? If you're really, very pious type of people. And Dr. Tversky, he said very wisely, he said, instead of sharing a bedroom before you're married, try sharing a checkbook before you're married. Try sharing a bank account before you're married. That's much more difficult and much more learning and so forth. A husband and wife before they're married. Baruch Hashem, been married about 18 years. Almost will be, I guess, in December will be 18 years. Baruch Hashem. Kanai Nahara, and anybody who needs to find their zivug, I wish a bracha, they should find. And don't want anybody to be jealous. So we not only share in our marriage checkbook, whatever, we don't write checks usually, but a bank account, but we share a lot of our work. So we share a contract, and I go generally on Sunday, and my wife goes generally on Monday, and with that we have to share a set of keys, and we usually have just this one bag that we carry around, because today I'm going to do a wedding down on Long Island, and originally I had scheduled it for after work, and the couple asked, could we do it at 2 o'clock? so the son could be there. Happens to be a nice Christian couple. They're getting married, but they wanted me. I don't know, whatever it is. They hired me to come do the wedding. So what it worked out was because at 1:00 we do 1:15 we do the service. And then my wife has to cover for me, and we decide, all right, I'm going to leave her the bag, but I'm going to take one key, and I'm going to take my bag with the scissor and the tallis, and we're going to figure it out. And then I realized what I could have very easily taken, but Sundays are very difficult for me to wake up in the morning. And this is actually pretty early that I got up and I'm on my way. So, Baruch Hashem, I'm thankful for that. So, in the sign-in sheets, but I'll borrow a sign-in sheet from someone else, whatever it is. We'll figure it out. So, all of that's interesting stuff. Anyway, let's get back to what I wanted to talk about. So, I like to listen to talk shows on the radio. Even though I should probably be listening to Rabbi Weinberger or Rabbi Gottlieb or someone, who's wonderful, the Or Sameach YouTube channel. I highly recommend. And I learned there, some of those were not exactly my Rebbeim, but when I was learning in Or Sameach, I would sneak out of where I was supposed to be and go listen to the other shiurim. So I would go to Rabbi Gottlieb, I would go to Rabbi Kaplan, and they were great. They were great, and they're still great, and you can listen to them. And now they have Rabbi Breidowitz, wasn't there in my time, also phenomenal. So I highly recommend the Or Sameach YouTube channel because you have an authentic experience of what it's like being there in Yerushalayim, learning at Or Sameach. Not the Gemara shiurim and stuff, but the Musar and the Hashkafa things that are Shavuot L'Chol Nefesh. I think that's why those are the shiurim that they put on YouTube, because if these are things even non-Jewish people can also listen to and learn from and so forth, and it would be appealing and halachically appropriate for a wider audience. Anyway, I'm going to lose reception soon, so I have to wrap up. The one issue that I was listening to earlier, so I like to listen to, I should, that's what I was saying, I should be listening to the Or Sameach shiurim, and instead I was listening to talk shows. So during the week I listen usually to the right-wing talk shows, and then Sunday it's usually either sports or church or something, whatever. So I turn on NPR, and they've really gotten way off the track. It used to be NPR, you'd listen and they talk about literature and history and science. Also things that are like we would call Shavuot L'Chol Nefesh. Even if no matter what your politics are, you could appreciate it. But they've gone to be, not all of their shows, there's the nicest Borscht Beat, which is actually quite nice, a Jewish show. And actually I did a program last week with NPR, and we'll see when that comes out, whatever it is. But the message, and I think they interviewed me recently in the local newspaper. I don't know if it was this week's or next week's. But Sof Kol Sof, what we were talking about on NPR, they were talking about climate change. And I was thinking about this, and it goes back to what we were saying before about having to be besimcha. The secular people, they have a religion of gloom and doom, of fire and brimstone, with this many things that are just very, giving them anxiety and sadness and so forth. And the big thing is the climate change. I remember as a kid, I grew grew up watching Captain Planet, and it would, brainwash us that, look at these like ugly bad guys who are polluting, looting, and polluting. That's not the way, right? And then you had all these kids, they got together and they made Captain Planet, fighting the pollution, and this was the propaganda that we were fed back in the 90s. And I remember having a lot of anxiety about nuclear war, having nightmares about atom bombs and things. That's what I remember in my youth, when that wasn't even a big issue. The Cold War already came to an end and so forth, and yet it was something that was really strong on my radar, partially because I was watching a lot of Cold War era movies. And so it was something that I was very interested in, but it also gave me a lot of anxiety as a child. And I wasn't religious. And so, religion certainly gave me a lot of simcha in life, and it made me a much happier person. But I'm still dealing with anxiety and so forth. And, being an adult now and having to pay a mortgage and pay bills and so forth. And, even though, Baruch Hashem, I have a wonderful job that I love so much, and a lot of people are suffering and they need to find work and they need all kinds of things, and it's and I pray for them and I wish them well. So, the month of Shach, anyway, this climate change issue, I was thinking a lot about this morning because they were talking about it, and whether it's a hoax, whether it's this, that, it's fascinating to me because the scientific narrative is of a very long geological history, which religiously you could discuss if that fits into our religious narrative or not. And I can see both sides, and I don't know. I'm not there. I'm open to only see. The other day I was talking to someone who believes in higher biblical criticism, and they were talking about. This was on Facebook, and they were talking about my biggest apologetic argument against higher biblical criticism is, the redactor did a pretty lousy job. Why are there all these spelling errors and grammatical errors and so forth if you're supposed to be an editor? They did a lousy job, unless certainly the people who are preserving believe this was divine, and they're preserving all of these things because they believe it was divine, and it wasn't an error. And we don't believe that the Ksiv and all these things are errors. We believe that they're divine among the religious people. And then, the hubris and the arrogance of the secular establishment, saying, well, the redactor wasn't this, he was that, he wasn't the editor of the New York Times, he was just collecting old Jewish stories and putting them together. And I said to him, I was like, oh, did you have lunch with the redactor when he told you all of these things and his whole psychology and everything that he was, Rabbi Beryl Wine, Shlita, should be well. He told a story that when he was a kid, and again, we're going to lose reception soon, that the boys, they got interested in this nonsense of higher biblical criticism, the documentary hypothesis, and they found some Israeli book written by some know-it-all professor, arrogant Israeli professor, and the level of arrogance was fascinating because they had a picture, and it was of a man with a beard, looking in biblical clothes, a portrait, and the title, the caption said, Yeshayahu Hasheni, the second Isaiah, Deutero Isaiah. This is a picture of him. This is the guy who wrote Isaiah 40 through 66. And then some say that halfway through there was another author. They make up all these nonsense things. And that that is really. But the hubris that they have. So he said that they showed this to one of their Rebbeim, and he picked up the book and threw it across the room and landed right in the garbage pail. The nonsense. Not only did they say that there was a second author of Isaiah, but that they had a portrait, of this guy of Deutero Isaiah. Crazy. So with the Yenner, with the climate change, Kusukman vegan climate change. According to geological history, the climate has changed so many times. In the middle Jurassic, the beard must tickle you. Not really. It's quite comfortable. I don't even realize I have it. So, in the middle Jurassic, according to the scientists, the climate was much hotter during the Permian period, during the Carboniferous period, the Devonian period, the Cretaceous period, all climate change, and the Ice Age, and this and that. The climate changes all the time. I remember I spoke to a geologist. He said one volcano can do much more than all the cars for 50 years. So the hubris of thinking that humans are doing this climate change and that we can stop it, it's not even scientific, unless they believe that, I guess, the end of the Permian period, there was a group of very evolved dimetrodons that had carbon emissions, and we just lost all the record of them. And then at the end of the Cretaceous, the Zelbuzach, there was a bunch of troodons and the thing is, if you listen to Rabbi Bar Tzadok, it seems there were such things, that there were highly advanced civilizations and they made it to outer space, and these are the different angels and aliens and things that we know about, the Seraphim, the Chayes HaKodesh, and V'chulu V'chulu. Maybe yes, maybe no, we don't know. Anyway, I'm about to lose reception. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. Thank you for spending almost a half hour with me with my nonsense and my ramblings.